Hey guys, it's Cam from Craftsman Tailored, and in this episode of What is on My Wrist, we're talking about a Universal Geneve, aka the Nina baby. The reference is 885103/02. And this watch has a cult-like following. It's a watch that has increased in popularity, and it is a watch that I have fallen in deep, deep romantic relations with. Romantic relations. There's a ton of collectible watches, obviously, and if there wasn't, then Craftsman Tailored wouldn't exist, this YouTube channel wouldn't exist. I don't know what I'd be doing with my life. I'd probably be still stuck in the technology business, working for the man, and hating my life. I don't know. There's a lot of collectible vintage watches. Only a few references have been propelled to what we would call pop culture status, and the Nina Rindt is definitely one of those watches. So Nina Rindt was a style icon in Europe and a well-known model. So she was basically super hot. Still, I don't know if she is still hot, but she was a babe. I think she still is a babe. Nina, if you're watching, call me. I don't know, maybe. So one of Nina's most notable appearances were trackside during Formula One races of the 1960s. And the reason why she was there is because she was the wife of Heuer Rindt. Is it Joachim? Joachim? So Nina was married to Heuer Rindt. You know, Joachim, if you're into Formula One racing of the 1960s, raced alongside of Jackie Stewart and, you know, a bunch of awesome dudes. Unfortunately, Joachim died in a crash, and this era and time for F1 was just very dangerous and, I mean, insane, right? These guys were real deal heroes. They were driving, they were pushing the limits of both technology and of you know, automotive power at that time, and unfortunately, Joachim perished in an accident. What's interesting about the watch that Nina had been seen wearing is Joachim, it has been said that Joachim actually gifted the watch to Nina. And I'm sure that at the time, you know, watches, especially like if you look at, you know, Joe Siffert, you know, were big within automotive. Joe Siffert being, you know, basically a brand ambassador appointed by Jack Heuer. Kind of same thing with a lot of these, you know, chronographs of that era. They were given as gifts and or as endorsements. And the story is that Joachim gifted Nina the you know, the Universal Geneve to her, and she can be seen trackside timing his lap times, and would, you know, obviously be using this to, you know, time his lap time. So she was very involved in his career, and they, you know, were very close, obviously, as husband and wife, and was kind of a cool, you know, trackside, you know, love story, which unfortunately ended in Joachim's, you know, death, unfortunately. But what's really cool about the Universal Geneve brand is I think that, you know, it's a watch that flies a little bit under the radar, whether it's a Space Compax, which we've reviewed on our channel, or, you know, one of the, you know, divers. Universal Geneve is like a very interesting brand, and I think a brand that at the time was definitely a tier 2 brand to, let's say, like Omega or Rolex, but as a result of that, I think you see design features and details within the Universal Geneve line of watches holistically that really push the boundaries and make them just really awesome. And this is a watch that I think kind of falls into that category. The watch, I think, could be compared to maybe a Paul Newman, right? The dial itself is white. It has black subdials. The markers on the dial are tipped with tritium, and then they're black. Additionally, the hands are black enameled, and then you have these really wide, almost cigarette style hands within the minute totalizers, the minute and hour totalizers on the dial, which give this thing a very poppy, high contrast, unique look. So there is such thing as an Evil Nina. Evil Nina is basically the inverse of this, which is the, you know, black dial variant with the white subdials. This is the official Nina Rindt, which is, you know, the white dial with the black subdials. If you loop the, you know, base portion of the dial, the white portion of the dial, it's very similar in kind of texture and feel to a Paul Newman. Matter of fact, I would venture to say that Rolex and Universal Geneve, along with other brands, were leveraging the same dial manufacturers, being Baylor or Singer of that era, to create these dials. And I think that they're probably very similar in terms of, you know, lacquer and or coating makeup, which gives them a very similar look while also still being uniquely different. The reference 885-103-02, you know, again, is a very high contrast watch, but I think what's interesting and something that is common within the Rindts or you know, the Compax range of watches is I think there was a period of time where they were just kind of out there and available and not really collectible, and there wasn't this kind of pop culture status around them. And so often when you go out and you look for a Rindt or any of the Compax series through Universal Geneve, you know, you can find dials that are in kind of a tired or degraded condition. I think that's as a result of the watches really not being cared after or looked after throughout their history. So finding a really good one is very, very tricky. And I think that is also what has generated a cult-like following around them. Obviously, there's the association to, you know, Nina wearing them and Joaquin and you know, the racers of that era. Additionally, I think that they're just very eye-catching and iconic and really, really unique. So I think that they kind of stand on their own, but I think what makes them interesting is they are high contrast, they're of that era, and they possess details that aren't too far outside of what we were seeing kind of from a watch design, you know, element within this period, but also unique enough to, again, kind of put them into their own category. So the movement, very much similar to, like, let's say a Rolex Daytona 6239 or a 6241 of the same era, you know, would be a Valjoux 72. This specific 885-103/02 is from 1967 and is in just immaculate, flawless condition. This is actually one of the nicest Nina Rindts I have ever seen. The case condition is perfect. The bezel, the tachometer is black, it's dark, there's very minimal patina, if any at all. The dial remains very bright white. The hands are perfect. The lume dots at the end of each marker are fully intact under ultraviolet light inspection, flawless. And what's interesting with this range, especially the earlier Rindts, they have the black subdials actually have a tendency to go brown. These subdials are actually going brown. How far they'll go, that's anyone's guess. But if you look at the subdials in the sunlight and compare them in contrast to the black hands as well as the black outer, you know, bezel, they're definitely like a deep chocolatey mocha brown, which kind of gives another element of contrast to the watch. So incredible. The watch, very much similar to, let's say, a Rolex Daytona 6241 or a 6239, is 36 millimeters in case size, but it really doesn't wear like a 36. I would say it wears maybe like, you know, like a Heuer Carrera out of the same era. Not as large, but not as small either. It kind of fits nicely on the wrist. I quite like it. I don't think it wears small. I think it wears basically perfect. I like the pump pusher design. The thing that is kind of unique and onto itself within Universal Geneve is that it does have kind of a semi-twisted lug, which is kind of unique and interesting. The sides of the case are flat, but then you have a twist on the inside of the lug. These watches were both sold and supplied on bracelets and on strap. It came on a gorgeous calfskin black rally strap. And it's actually listed on our website, so I'll provide a link in the description below if you want to dive into the details deep on this one. I think that the watch fits really nicely on the strap. I've been wearing it and it's a very comfortable watch. And you know, the thing that's nice about this is that I was driving the other night and I was actually driving my 75 911S, was driving this watch at night, and I looked at my wrist while it was on the steering wheel and I instantly saw what time it was, which was really, really cool. So I think I got to kind of experience this watch from that perspective, being able to see every single hand on this dial in the dark, driving in a car that is pretty dimly lit, there's not a lot of light coming off that gauge cluster. I think that's ultimately the design inspiration behind this watch, and it's amazing. You know, the other thing too that I really like is I like the hand shape of Universal Geneve out of this era. They kind of have their own, I want to say maybe like Art Deco-ish, right? If you look at like the Space Compax or some of the other watches from Universal Geneve out of this 1960s, they leverage kind of these Art Deco-y numerals, which I think is a key signature feature of that brand. But the hands themselves, the dial, it's very minimalistic. I like the black and white kind of contrast. It's kind of like a less is more. It almost kind of reminds me of like a 6263 Newman in the sense that, you know, there's really not a lot of colors. It's a black and white watch, and it's somewhat monochromatic in that color and feel. And I also think that's what makes this thing an icon from a design perspective. Case is unpolished on this example. You know, dot over 90 bezel, exceptional condition. I don't know what more I can tell you about this outside of this is the best one that I've ever seen. The prices on, you know, Universal Geneves and 885-103/02s are definitely moving up. Good ones are getting very, very hard to find. Last year I found a good example. This is the trumps it by 10. So they're getting very hard to find, and that's something that I think is kind of fun, but also challenging when you're searching for the reference. So very rarely do they pop up. When they do, you know, they're typically in a kind of subpar condition, and the good ones like this typically move pretty quickly and are in demand, no doubt. So I will provide a link in the description below so that you can check out this example and or up here. And as always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have questions, we have answers. Feel free to drop us a line at info@craftandtailor.com. And also check us out on Instagram if you're not doing so already. We post a lot of new content and updates there as well. So I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for tuning in.